All right, here is a video review for Fans Toys FT-51 CHOMP. He's here. It's been a while since we've had a Fans Toys product here on the channel. I just haven't picked anything up. But I couldn't pass up on Skull Cruncher. Skull Cruncher has been a favorite of mine since childhood. Like, my childhood headmasters were Skull Cruncher and Chrome Dome. So we've actually got nice MP versions of both of them now, and we'll get to that a little later in the video. But here he is, speaking of the G1 version, here he is with his G1 version self. This is, unfortunately, I have a few of my original childhood Transformers. This is not one of them. My friend Jeremy hooked me up with most of this one. I think I had to hunt down either a tail or a head. I can't remember. This Skull Cruncher, but thanks to Jeremy, several years ago. It was not recently, but he's been on my shelf ever since to have my G1 Skull Cruncher back. But there he is with G1 Skull Cruncher. Here he is with the... technically, I've got Megatron's head on this, but that came with the Bat Convoy. I don't know where I put the Grax that came with it, the Titan's Return Skull Cruncher here. I still have the Grax. It's probably in a parts bin somewhere. But he does have a Megatron head hiding in there. And one day we'll find Grax. But anyway, there's that. And of course, here is the Toy World version over here. And I don't even know if I can fit all these big gator boys, crocodile boys, whatever. There was an argument we established. He's kind of a mix of both. But there they all are all together there as in their alt modes. But we're really not here for these guys, are we? We're here for this good boy right here. Now here he is in his base mode. He does come with his gun, which can go right here. There is a little slot here in the back of his mode to put that on there if you want to, but you don't have to do that. And you can just set it to the side if you want. He's got an opening mouth. He's got a little missile launcher / flamethrower or something in his mouth. His teeth disappear when you close his mouth. That was part of what we were arguing about, or debating, not even debating, discussing whether he was an alligator or a crocodile. But he's got very sharp, pointy teeth. I mean, you're probably not going to hurt yourself on them, but just be careful because they do have a little bit of a point to them. And they're not like razor sharp, but they're pointy. He's got a movable tail. You can collapse this straight for the sword to make it one solid piece, but you can't extend all the joints. It can also rotate and wag back and forth, so you can move the tail around like that. The legs are all have little hinges and toe articulation, and there's even like this piece. At first I thought it was broken, but this piece does actually swivel over here. There is a little bit of a foot swivel here on the, I don't know if it's, yeah, there's a screw there. I wouldn't put too much pressure on it. It feels like I don't want to twist it too hard, but it does have a little bit of a swivel there. So you see like that onto the front feet. So this side is not actually screwed in. So if you notice that, don't freak out. There are two minor modifications that I have made to this from stock, one of which, as you can see, is I did put a repro label on it already, which should give you some indication of how I feel about it right off the bat. And I also modified the tail in one small way, which we'll discuss when we get to robot mode, because that's really where it's more important. It was a very minor mod, very easy to do, nothing obstructive, just used a couple screws. There are also, however, a couple of spots, a couple of things, details that are not in the instructions. Some of them are very blatantly not in the instructions. Some of them are just, am I not interpreting this right? Because the instructions are, in some places, a little dark to transform him. One of the things here in Gator mode is the more overlooked one. The instructions have you just leave his arms out like this and fold them down at the elbow. They have him doing something like this for his arms, and I'm not entirely sure. Like, it doesn't actually proper, because it has this whole section sticking out when it has him in Gator mode in the instructions, although that does collapse up into the shoulder and gives him a little slightly stumpier leg and lets you sit it at a little bit more natural angle than hanging all the way back here. You can have him kind of come straight down, and the legs look more like more natural Gator legs when you collapse those up in there. Now this side over here, you can see it kind of falls out a little bit. Like, it stays just fine when it's like when he's putting weight on it. When you pick him up, this has a tendency to slide a little more easily than this one does. It's not a big deal. It really, because it does, for robot mode, when you extend it all the way, it does lock into place like it should. It's just, it's a little floppy in Gator mode. Not the end of the world. It might be something I can fix with tightening some screws or whatever. But yeah, so there's that. Also, one of the major things not in the instructions is these two green spikes right here on his gator back. They do flip into the robot mode, and the instructions show the finished gator mode like this. My first picture on Twitter actually had those folded in, because they're not mentioned in the instructions, and unless you know they're there, they're not super obvious. I mean, once you know they're there, they actually are pretty obvious, but you just flip those around. And give him his little detail up here on the back. Also, these pieces right here collapse in and extend out, and I didn't see that explicitly in the instructions, but you want to have these little abdomen pieces here slid out. You can kind of see the rail they slide on there next to the Decepticon symbol. And we'll show those collapsing when we transform him. And that's about it for Gator mode. The things that, and maybe everything that's missed in the instructions now that I think about it, at least that I'm aware of, was missed in the instructions. Maybe there's more. And if there is, somebody's going to let me know, I promise. He has a little cockpit up here. Like I said, but he's got a little bit of up and down and side to side on his head. A little limited based on everything. There's also, that's the other thing, there's also in the instructions, there's these little panels here that flip around. Does that give him, I guess maybe that's what they're for right there. I hadn't actually flipped them out. So those flip out and kind of hide this collar piece a little better, make those ridges go away. That is where I was going to mention them because I couldn't figure out why those rotated out. They just blocked everything from folding up properly in robot mode, and they didn't seem to have a purpose of locking anything in gator mode. But now that it's actually all sitting there, although that does keep his head from moving up and down there the way it was moving on this hinge. But anyway, that's there. So yeah, that's a mystery solved. Oh, right. He's got a little cockpit here, which is, there is actually right here in the middle, there's a little divot that you can get a thumbnail in. And it takes, there's a little tab there. Actually, I guess maybe if you come over to the side, it might be a little easier, but yeah. Getting a fingernail in there is key because it does sit very securely along the thing. And you can see there's Grax inside there. He's got a little steering wheel that doesn't really go for any further down than that. I thought he was blocking it, but it turns out that's just where it goes. But you can lift that little die-cast steering wheel up. At least it feels like die-cast. It's certainly chromed. And you can pull him out. Yeah, that's as far down as that goes. Can't tell if that turns or not, but let's not push it. A little detailed, slightly detailed cockpit there in the crocodile head. And here's Grax. He's got little ball joints there at the shoulders. He's got hinge elbows. His head does not move, which is fine. And he's got ball joint at the hips, and then he's got a hinge knee, and he actually has some panels here on the side, but he actually has ball joints there on the feet, so he's got a little bit of an ankle tilt. So you can get his, well, that's the first time that's happened. That really is the first time that's happened. I haven't messed with his ankles that much. So let's pop that back into place. Come on, ankle, pop back into place. There we go. And then we'll stand him up with his flat feet. But yeah, more posable than the original, though he doesn't even have the little flap that covers his face. He's just got a full-on face there on the back of his head. And when you fold them up, there's little tabs. You can see there's little tabs here on the back of this that the back of the forearms tab into. So you fold those up. Go ahead and turn them into a head here. And latch those into place. The feet tab together and then fold down. And then there's little tabs here on either side just above the ankle that will tab into the shoulders to lock that all together. There's Skull Cruncher's head. We'll put that aside for the time being. Transforming him. So he's complex, but not super unintuitive and not really frustrating. The only part that's mildly frustrating is the legs, because there's inner panels that wrap around the thigh when you fold them up. That can be, honestly, not as big of a mess as you think they're going to be when you're like, oh God, I've got to fold that other panel around. And it actually comes together not as difficultly as you would expect, but it's still a little bit of that's the one kind of clunky part of this transformation. But there's some really elegant stuff going on with how everything ends up inside the legs and such, which is really cool. But to start off, we'll go ahead and split this down here just a little bit, just to get the sword out. This little piece rotates. That's what allows the tail to rotate. And you want to, before you collapse everything, open up these side panels here, rotate this flat, and then rotate this whole assembly so the handle comes out, and then close that back up, and then you can collapse all of these joints down to make it one solid piece. You can still rotate here, but yeah. Also, I use the tip of this, not destructively, but there's a couple little places where you just need, I just can't quite get my fingernail under, and just kind of going wink with the tip of this works. One of those cases being right here, this little piece right here. Just get a little bit of a, just catch it just a smidge, just enough to get that up so I can get my thumb under it and pop that up, because that little hinge folds into there. And then the legs, we'll go ahead and, again, because they're wrapped around here, so you kind of got to split them. And then on one side, there's this panel, this larger panel, but there's a smaller panel up here. You can see the pin right there that you need to flip up first, because that's holding this other panel in place. So you got to kind of get in here, lift that up, and that will let you lift it a little bit more. And then, wait, before we do that, this is important. Get this up lift the hands up out of the way, because these are his feet right here. You got to lift this torso panel up. I would have figured that out eventually, but actually I did figure it out eventually. So, but yeah, you got to get that out, and it latches in pretty well too. Although this is the most difficulty I've had, lift the feet up a little bit and getting this whole panel to lift up here. Screen. There we go. So you got to lift that up, because here's the feet, and then you can kind of, gives you a little bit more freedom to wiggle this. But like I said, this panel right here you want to lift up, and that will get out of the way for this panel. And you got to kind of get the feet out. And once you get it to about here, you're fine. You can wiggle the foot past this. Like I said, going in, it's a little finicky as well. But once you get any sort of clearance here, it goes much more smoothly. It's just getting that first little bit of clearance and then folding everything in that last little click into gator mode that are the most frustrating bits of this. So open that up. This little piece here that hinges up, lifts up, and that'll let you bring the whole knee joint around. And then on the leg, here's where it gets complex. This green piece rotates around to face the outside, and the pink comes in. The foot rotates up like this. And again, this is a little area where it's hard to get just to hook that, but just the tip of the tail can just enough to get your fingernail under that hit ridge on the toe, the heel piece, to bring it up. So when you get this out here, this piece right here rotates around on this hinge and comes up and snaps into place right there. You can go ahead and rotate the foot. You don't want to rotate it all the way up in yet, but you can get it in the position it's going to be final. This piece comes down and around, and you want to rotate it all the way around, because it's going to go up into the leg all the way up there like that. This flat panel, this little piece right here tabbed into this, folds flat on the back of the leg. And then you can go ahead and you can see this hollow piece in the knee. This piece is going to go into, so fold that panel back in to lock that in place. And then you can kind of go ahead and fold the foot up into that. Fold this panel down on this panel. Again, there's a peg here that's going to tab into this panel. So fold that around, lock that into place, fold that, and tab, line that up and tab everything in. Oh, we're not done with this because we haven't got the leg in there yet. I was all like, and then you're done. No, I mean, I guess you can, if you want, you can fold this around in a way that leaves the gator legs on the outside, if you prefer that, like the G1 toy. So you have that option. But there is a piece here. We can completely get this out of the way. Open this all the way back up so that this is all, get the foot out of the way. So this is completely open to this hinge. And this piece with the foot, it's on here. You want to slide it. It slides on this. You can see the kind of groove there in this piece. Slides down, rotates, slides it up, rotates it around. And you gotta make sure there's clearance. And then slides. You can see there's the panel, and you slide that back up into place like that. The foot coming around like this. You want to bring this up. This is going to stick out the back. Bring it all the way up like that, and like this. So this piece right here is kind of sitting up in this cutout in the pink piece, and then you can fold this around. Again, get the foot clearance there, fold this around, latch it all back into place. And then this piece, like I said, is going to fold up just along the back here on this hinge, like that. And you can kind of see that the hinge there on the thing, just fold it up at that circular bit so it sits right up there. Close that up like that, and then you can bring the foot on that hinge up where it's going to sit. Now you can leave this, this came with this folded down behind the heel, although it also came with this heel piece flipped up. But I like to fold that up onto the back of the leg there. Just collapse it to be clean. And also, when you fold this up, there's a little slot here on this green piece. You'll know you've got it lined up right when this tab on the pink piece goes into the green. You just lock that in like that. And there is one leg done. And then it's the same process on the other side over here. Wiggle this out. First get this panel open. You can see it a little bit more clearly here. You got to open this panel because it's covering this piece, and then pull this whole thing up, out and around. Bring the foot out, and then untab this right here, which will allow the knee to come. It says rotate a little bit. Sometimes rotating the knee a little bit will give it just the clearance it needs, because you can see there's an angled piece there to make it past that. But fold that out, go ahead and lock that piece in place, just because that's going to keep all the rest of this from flopping around while you're transforming the leg. But then this piece, again, folds up, around and up into there. Fold that piece flat against the back. You can go ahead now and bring the foot in, and again, kind of nestle it right up into there. And then go ahead right there at the circular joint. Fold it so it's kind of sticking straight out the back of the leg. You can bring this piece around, latch that in, fold that panel down, fold it around past that, and then peg all that together. This piece right here flips up on that hinge and tabs into place like that. And you can bring the foot forward, get that heel out if you can. Use a little bit of a tip just to get it. And then right here at this green hinge, just rotate the foot up into the body like that. Flip that up, and that leg is done. Much easier the second time when I'm not explaining every step. You want to rotate the legs around. This is the back part of his waist with the screws. Rotate it around so it's facing the front plate here. And then rotate the whole waist assembly around to the front. Go ahead and you can see he's got tech specs there. Well, actually you can't see that because it's closed, so we'll save that until later. Coming up here to the top, a much simpler job here. I'll go ahead and flip these panels right here in, around, so they're flush. They rotate a full 180, so whichever way you go. These are the two abdomen panels I was talking about. Not really shown in the instructions, but they don't make sense expanded out here for robot mode, so you just collapse those in. There's the sticker I was talking about. And then you just bring the arms down and extend them. And like I said, this one's a little floppy in this mode, but once you click it all the way down, it stays. You can see I'm pushing up on it, and it doesn't fall into place, or it doesn't slide all the time. Rotate his arms around like that. Bring the, that screw's coming loose. I'll have to tighten that up a little bit. But we can do that right now. I've got a screwdriver right here. So let's go ahead and tighten that right back up. There we go. Done. The hands, I'm so glad they did this, because the hands are like have movable fingers, and they fold up in there like that, where they're kind of, you're basically looking at it like his hand like this, with his fingers folded up and the palm facing up out of the hand. And sometimes when you do that, even when you give a little groove like this, the fingers, if the knuckles wiggle too much, they'll want to get caught on the edge. But on this, there's an extra panel under here that can open up, so you can just push it out from the top. So much nicer. You want to, you kind of got to wiggle this all the way out, enough room to fold this up, because this does tab into each side of the wrist. So you can fold that up so you have the clearance to fold the foot down, but then you can fold that up, fold that so it locks into place, collapse that back up to where it needs to be. Easy peasy, and you don't have to fight with the stiff wrist or trying to get anything out. Just open up the bottom, push it right through. Fantastic. I wish more figures with fold-up hands like that did that. I'm looking at you, Fans Hobby Jinrai, because oof, sometimes those hands that fist, the way they fold up into the forearms, do not want to come back out, and it's frustrating. Same on this side. And just push the hand up, slide it out. Look at how easy that is. And then fold that back down, lock everything in place. And then you can see he's got the fully posable fingers here. This is what I was talking about in my other review, or maybe I may have not seen it yet, but you see me talking about my new Archcore figure. I wish the thumb kind of could do a little bit more of this. Anyway, that's a reference to another video review that may or may not be live yet, depending on what order I put these up in. If not, you got a preview, and if it is, well, then you know what I'm talking about. And we're almost done here. This piece right here, these panels right here, this is where the feet came in. Fold these small little panels down that it just fills in a gap. They could have absolutely not put those in there, but they did, because when you close this up, otherwise you'd have a little gap right there. I don't know that I would have been super upset about that, but I'm glad that they did it. You see a lot of screws here on the back, but you know, that's just how it's going to be. Then this piece comes down. You got to rotate. Again, these mystery pieces you got to fold in like that. So it'll expose that gap. But then you fold the crocodile head down onto his back, and then this piece, as you kind of do that, this piece comes down around as well like that, and then it all just kind of latches in. There's no, I guess these tabs. I said there's nothing really tabs it in. It's a very smooth jaw, but I guess there's these little tabs right here tab into the slots around the side of the crocodile head there. So fold them up like that. There's his backpack. There's his body. Go ahead and bring this down so you can see the whole. We're gonna get him in there. Yeah, there we go. And then you take Grax and plug him in. The connector up here, it's a little loose. The swivel here on this, but that's not the end of the world. But it's got a rotating swivel, and then the actual connector joint moves up and down. So even though it doesn't rely on the headmaster head for the articulation like some headmasters do, which is actually kind of nice because it makes it a little bit more secure, and it still lets him look up and down and turn all around there. But there is CHOMP in robot mode. Loving it. He can hold his gun in either hand. And I said, real quick articulation. He's got the up and down, side to side on the head. He's got a ball joint right there in the shoulder. He's got the bicep swivel, dual hinged elbows. Although they don't go all the way to a full crunch. You can't touch it up here, but a pretty decent range of motion there at the elbow. He's got a waist swivel. Does not have an ab crunch. That's okay. Ratcheting hips in both directions. Well, ratcheting hips front to back. Swivel to the side. Thigh swivel. A little squeaky there. Knees. To not quite 90 degrees. He's got big bulky feet. But then the feet have a hinge there. The hinge we rotated up in there. A posable ankle. So all around, he's pretty solid and posable. And really smooth. Like I said, I like the fact that you can leave the crocodile legs on the outside if you want him to look more G1 toy. But really nice, animation smooth looking skull cruncher here. Again, like I said, he's got the groove in his hand. You can put his gun in his hand, peg it in, and have him hold it. And here's the other modification I made aside from the sticker, because I like to have him with his gun in his right hand, sword in the left. Just how it is. You can put him in either side, but the handle you can see is specifically keyed. The peg is the tab here that fits into his hand is not in the middle of it. It's right on one edge. And when you first get it, it's done in such a way that for him to hold it in his left hand, you'd leave the screws facing out. And it didn't look good. It's cosmetic. It's not the end of the world, but I wanted this to be smooth on the outside. So basically, I unscrewed these two screws, popped it up, flipped the piece over, and screwed it back together, because the inner piece that connects to the alligator mode, you saw rotated, so it doesn't matter which way you flip it in here. So you can flip that around. Very easy to do. It took me like less than 5 minutes. And then you can flip, because the tab, you can see the slot is right up against this edge here, so it wouldn't fit the other way. Otherwise, I'd just have them hold it differently. But peg that in, and there he is. It's been a while since I've handled a Fan Toys figure, but again, being one of my favorite characters, and he's super solid. The only real issues I have with the Fan Toys, with the transformation, and it's not even an issue. The only place it gets a little dicey is that last step, folding the legs into alligator mode. I'm using alligator and crocodile interchangeably, just go with me. And that first step of getting them out, I guess technically the second step, if you count the first step as being getting this piece out. That's not pegged in all the way. There we go. But yeah, but it leads for a very nice figure. He's super solid. He's hefty. He's a lot of fun. And I've been staring at him in admiration in both modes the last couple of days. And that's the thing, too. A lot of times figures like this will show up, and they'll be like, all right, but I don't want to turn him back into the other mode. I don't have that problem with this. Even though there's some fiddly bits, he's not a chore to change back and forth. So even with that leg bit, which is I'm quite happy about. But there he is. Here he is, since we had him all earlier, with his G1 self. Here he is with the Titan's Return self, albeit with the, as mentioned, the Megatron head, because I don't have, I still have it. I just can't find the Grax head that came with it. It's somewhere. It's absolutely in a bin somewhere. Just didn't feel like digging for it tonight. And then here he is with the Toy World version as well. His head should turn. There we go. So we're going to have a whole lot of crunching going on here on the review table tonight. So there's Skull Cruncher Through the Ages. I don't have the Cyberverse one. I saw it once at a store and didn't pick it up right away and have not seen it again. I'm sure it's out there because, to be fair, I haven't gone looking through the Cyberverse stuff, especially down on the bottom shelf where Target generally keeps them. So it's possible that I've been in a shop with him more than once, but it's not what I usually go hunting for. And honestly, I haven't done a whole lot of in-person hunting lately. I've done a little bit since Legacy came out, but maybe I'll pick him up just for the sake of completionism down the road. So there's that little collection. And like I said earlier, my two childhood headmasters were him and Chrome Dome. So to have him now to go here with Make Toys Chrome Dome makes me very, very happy. Both retroactively all the way back to being, geez, what was I, 12 or 13 when the first ones came out, to just now on my shelf. Super stoked to have those two back together in high-end representations. So yeah, welcome back to the shelf there, Fans Toys. Been a while, but you have thoroughly impressed me with one of my favorite childhood characters. So thanks.